Is my mic working? Check, check, check. I always feel a little creepy when like YouTube tells me to freeze for the camera so they have a thumbnail image for my live stream. Anyway, so it is Monday and I record a general podcast. This is the original kind of content that we did way back when this was a once a week podcast. And for the last week and a half, I've been doing these live on YouTube while also recording in my GarageBand program. So I'm just making sure the everything appears to be working, and then I'm making sure GarageBand appears to be working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch into my podcast episode today. If I see comments, I might respond to your comment in the podcast. I did last time. Try not to make me laugh though, because I don't want to break off into gales of laughter in the middle of the podcast. Anyway, if I make a mistake, you'll hear it. I might say the S word. I might not. I probably won't. I'm in a pretty good mood today, so less likely to be, kind of grumpy. Hey, farmish kind of life. Glad to see you here. So today I was really not sure what I wanted to talk about because there are so many things to talk about right now. And so I hopped over on mewe and I thought, what should I talk about? And some people asked me to talk about fermentation and some other cooking things, which I think will be a great fit for Wednesday. But I was like, well, I could do an update on grow. And it seemed like that was a good idea, according to people. So I decided I would do an episode today about Grow 2020, how it's going, despite the fact that every time I turn around, I feel like somebody's just like whapping me in the face, like, pow, pow. Like every time I turn around, something else happens. We actually got our first case of COVID confirmed in the county, and everybody's freaking the hell out now in my county. So it's hitting here next, and we're just staying home. Because staying home in the country with nobody around is really nice when everybody else is panicking. And it's kind of interesting because where I live, we have all these cabins that people just sort of use in the summertime. Some of them, I haven't seen anybody in the cabins since I moved here. It's 14 years. People are now in their cabins. So some people have come out from the city, I think, to get away from the mayhem. So that's just kind of an interesting thing going on in the background. That means I'm seeing cars I've never seen before. And when I see cars I've never seen before, I give them stink eye. Because, we know everybody who drives by on the road. But it's been a weird day. And I was really fortunate over the weekend because a whole bunch of people ordered coffee. So I banged out about 50 pounds of coffee this morning roasting, which is pretty much my max for a day. And got those going. So now we're recording the podcast at 4 p.m. Okay, so I'm going to jump into this, make sure everything's working. And we will record episode 285 of Living Free in Tennessee. Welcome, everyone, to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you want to live on your terms. And what better time to do that when the whole world is melting down? It's the perfect time to take that step. Somebody was talking to me online today I was like, hey, it's a great time to make money. And they said, how? And I gave them some ideas and they said, well, I can't do that. And I said, okay, well, what can you do? And they said, well, I could work on my business. I was like, exactly. You can work on your business. If you've been wanting to start something and you're suddenly out of work and have a lot of time, you might as well start something now, right? So start putting that brain power to it. So today I checked in on mewe in the morning and I wasn't sure what I wanted to cover because there were so many ideas that I had. And we have been talking about COVID like every episode for 100 years. And I thought, you know what? I'm pretty sick of this topic. And so how about we talk about something besides that today? And I tossed out a couple of ideas. One idea is a way better fit for Wednesday. And it's just about how building ferments into your diet can really help with gut health. And it's also, I'll go back through how I do some of my ferments. We have a ton of ferments put up here right now. So we're in an eating phase, not a making phase, but I would like to get one more ferment going this year for the summer before it gets too hot to ferment, because you can still ferment when it's hot, but it's not as good. So I'll do that on Wednesday. And then I tossed out the idea about just doing something about grow, because I ended the year announcing my word of the year was grow. The workshop is all focused about the concept of growing. It's a Q1 update today. And more importantly, I want to talk about what you can do to grow through this year. come what may. And it has been like somebody wrote, "This is the year Stephen King is writing the script for the year." It's kind of true, isn't it? Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. So I'll talk about that later in the show. Also, guys, a reminder, I am streaming the recording of my podcast on YouTube. And sometimes I see comments like Sugar Creek Homestead just said hello in comments, and I can see that while I'm going. I don't always look over there because it's off to the side, but it's kind of fun to get some of that live listener feedback. And for those of you who prefer to consume things on YouTube, that's the best way to do it. I'm not editing anything on YouTube. I'm just going to go for it. Also, if you want to give me feedback or send me a Stump the Sauce, I'm kind of low on Stump the Sauces for Wednesday, just saying. You can do that. Email Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com. Or go over to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact, fill out the form, and those emails come to me. Okay, so right now it's time for our first segment, Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about storing what you eat and eating what you store. You know, what's interesting about this one? People used to make fun of me for doing this. Like, they used to make fun of me. And now they're not anymore. Now they're kind of saying, we're a little jealous. And I'm thinking, well, I always thought it was just a logical way to live, that you figure out what you eat, stock up on some of it so you have a cushion, open yourself up to the ability to buy multiples of the things you eat on a budget. And that's why I started talking about my pantry on this podcast. Well, now it's like serious pantry tests. Like last summer, we did the grocery store challenge where you couldn't go to a grocery store for a month. And it was in July, which is when like all the stuff's coming off the garden, right? Well, we just got thrown into another grocery store challenge here. And so I'm really testing the Prepper Pantry in ways it hasn't been before. And we're eating only from it and whatever's in the fridges and freezers, right? And what that means is I have stored goods like canned food, canned tomatoes, canned pickles, stuff like that. Frozen food, most of my meat I store is frozen, not canned, because I prefer it frozen. Although if I had a major power outage, I would grab my pressure canners and I would start madly pressure canning the meat so that it didn't go bad, as well as make, like fire up the smoker and make some serious barbecue centered things. So we're living off what's in the freezer, anything we can grow. So I consider what you're growing in your kitchen garden or what you're growing on your windowsill above your sink, that's part of your Prepper Pantry. If you've got a cycle of lettuce going, like I got this cycle of lettuce going in January, which I'm really thankful for right now because that's most of the lettuce we're eating, right? That's all part of your pantry. And it makes a big difference if you start practicing your growing now as opposed to when you need it. Well, now I need it, but I have been practicing and failing at growing for many, many years. And sometimes I do things right. And this year I finally figured out lettuce. I'm really thankful for that. And then also the eggs from our livestock and the poultry are, backup plan ducks do, but no, they give me eggs every day. So we're set on eggs and forage foods. I had a great couple of walks in the woods this weekend and found all sorts of good stuff to eat. So that's what's happening in the Prepper Pantry. I've been in the process of reorganizing my long-term storage. I still got another day, I think, a full day in there right now. And I was distressed to discover I only had 4 gallons of vinegar, and usually I keep 6. So I put an order in to restock 2. And I can go pick it up today. I've decided not to go pick it up because now we have the virus in our area. And I thought, you know what? I don't need 2 gallons of vinegar that badly. So I'm canceling the order. And then later in the day, like this morning, I went out to the Prepper Pantry to get a dog fence that I need to put in. And I looked down and in this like way back corner where you'll never find it, 4 more gallons of vinegar. So I don't even need vinegar at this point. I have enough vinegar to do pickles if I can, or, all the cleaning that I do. I have to clean with vinegar a lot. So that's kind of, that's why you need to keep your long-term storage organized, Nicole. Yeah, I kind of failed on that one. I put canning supplies in front of the vinegar and now I can't see it. Don't do that. Okay. And then I'm also doing a series on YouTube called Cook With What You Have. I'm not sure when the first one will come out, but it will be our meal. We've been eating pretty good. In part because I have pretty good access to fresh vegetables, but we will get into what to do with all those stewed tomatoes and green beans as part of this series. Okay, so next up we have what's in season. And I wanted to take a minute to say hi, Bobby, because he said hi on YouTube. And yeah, Sugar Creek Farm says growing food is empowering. Yeah, right now it's necessary. It's kind of like, a good business to start right now? Seedlings. Start and sell seedlings. I'm totally going to. Anyway, what's in season? I kept this wild this time. Usually I'm talking about what's in season in the garden, what's in season also in the woods. And there's just so much in season in the woods. So think about this. Way back in the day, you stored everything that you needed to eat for the winter, and you got into these stores, and right about now, it's March. You haven't been eating that well for the last couple of months. It's been cold, and you're maybe a little bored with what you have, but you're thankful to have something. And then spring starts coming, and things start popping through the ground that you can eat. And one of the reasons I love Tennessee is that A, spring comes early. It's spring right now. And B, there is so much just like there for the taking. So I saw hairy vetch, which it's like a mini pea like vine that you can eat. There's vetch and hairy vetch. Vetch can be poisonous to some people. Hairy vetch is not. And it tastes like a pea. The mouth feels a little weird, and the younger it is, the better. It's perfect right now. It's young. Okay, so we also have wild garlic, and I found some really big bunches of it up in the woods. But wild garlic the way you find it in your lawn is it tends to be a little taller than the rest of your grass right now because our grass isn't really back yet. And then you pull it up, and it has little bulblets, but not like they're almost like chive looking, and they taste like I'll wait for it. Garlic. Anyway, so those are pretty good. And cream of wild garlic soup is fantastic. Watercress is perfect right now. I think in another week or two, it'll go to flower, and that makes it much more peppery. Right now, it tastes like mild radish. When it goes peppery, it will take like really strong radish. So if you don't like radish flavor, watercress is not your thing. But that works in salads and sautés and soups and all sorts of stuff. Wild mustard greens and wild mustard flowers are blooming. They're yellow. And they, mustard greens, right? You know what those are? Well, this is a lot like that, only it's wild. And it's wild because people had it and then seeds blew around and there you go. And so it's coming on right now. And Sugar Creek Farm says it makes a great soup broth. I've never tried that. I'll totally have to do that. I found a Dryads saddle mushroom yesterday, and we ate that up for dinner. Chickweed is coming on. Dandelions are blooming here. So we have dandelion greens, but also the flowers. You can pick those and dry them and put them aside for tea. They're healthy. They taste good. Burdock. Burdock greens are great in salad when they're young, and you can also saute them up. Plantain greens are great in salad when they're young, and you can also fry them up. Do you see a trend here? Deadnettle. Deadnettle is blooming here. You pluck the leaves off the stems. The stems are too chewy. And then stinging nettle is perfect for harvest this week, especially if you're using it medicinally like I do in my tea. And I found a new patch. I was on a walk yesterday. I found a new patch that's so much easier to get to than the other patch that I'm going to run down there after this podcast and get my bag and my gloves on and then go pick some of the stinging nettle. It was really fun when I found it up in the woods. There was dead nettle, stinging nettle, and strawberries all next to each other. Like, the faux strawberries or alpine strawberries that grow. It was kind of neat because I tried to trick, because the Tactical Redneck and Nighthawk were with me. I tried to trick him because I said, see, there's stinging nettle and there's dead nettle. What's the difference? And then I waited a few minutes and I pointed to the strawberry and I said, which one's that? And the answer was, it's neither, because I'm that kind of friend. Anyway, next segment is Operation Independence. This is where we talk about building ongoing local revenue into your life. You know why that's good? Right now, that's why that's good. So things are slowing it down a little bit in the economy, as I understand it. And one thing that has not, it slowed down at first, but it's kicked back up, is mail order coffee is not an unpopular thing right now. So I've been part of my Grow 2020 is Holler Roast coffee. I'm making a big change this week. And I've been thinking about making this change for about 6 months. I've been doing research early this year to decide how I wanted to grow the business and how big and in what direction. And am I adding employees and all of those questions? And I'll give you more on that in the actual content of the show. But the coffee growth has offset some of my loss in marketing work, which is really helpful right now. Also, base camp update, we got the kitchen floor in. So it was going to cost $600 to pay somebody to install a vinyl floor. Nighthawk and I got it in over the weekend, and I learned how to install vinyl, and I made some mistakes, and it's fine. And it looks great. And now there's a floor. We only have one more floor to put it. Here's where we're at base camp, right? Kitchen floor, bathroom floor, set the vanity for the bathroom and hook up the sink, hook up the kitchen sink, put in the appliances, lots of cleaning, and then we're going to find a bunch of other little stuff wrong, like latches on windows and stuff like that. So we're just about done, just in time for the workshop. That's where we're having our workshop classes. So super excited about that. We'll be able to offer it for rent probably in May or June, depending on the timing of how I do the final touches on the yard and that sort of thing. But that was a much bigger project than I thought it would be. And that's the way that always goes when I buy something and remodel it. So I need to remember next time I buy something to remodel, it's going to take a year. It's going to take a year. That's what I need to know. But every step forward is a step towards more local ongoing revenue. With that, it is time for the main topic of today's show, and that's grow in 2020. An update, no matter what happens, because I am going to grow this year no matter what. Okay. And one of the cool things about having a single focus, a word of the year, is that you can address something that you want to change in you, that you want to change in your life. And it hones you in like a laser focus, no matter what happens. And stuff's happening this year, right? Illness, pandemic, economic downturn, family deaths, loss of a house to a tornado, all of those things can happen. But if you have that one thing to focus back on, it's like your rally call. Okay, well, a tornado just wiped out my house, but I'm going to grow, right? And all the topsy-turvy things that happen in our lives happen. They happen no matter what. And with a single-minded focus on what you want to change, eliminate debt, whatever it is, just that one thing gives you a goalpost. And when you have that goalpost and you pick yourself up from whatever happened most recently, and you look around and say, self, what am I going to do today, self? Well, you need to grow. And you know that despite the ups and downs of life, tomorrow's going to happen. Sun's going to rise tomorrow. Whether or not we all get COVID or not, it's going to rise tomorrow. And you know what to do next. And things have been really challenging of late for a lot of people. A friend of mine mentioned that it's very difficult for businesses to make really important decisions right now because they don't know, like, is this over next week? Is this over in 6 months? Are we going to have a 50% population drop? Like all of those things that people get scared about. And I was like, yeah, it's hard to make critical decisions when you face big unknown things. But I say, what better time than to take the bull by the horns and evaluate how you're doing with your word, with your focus this year and decide. And I mean the word decide in this case. It's not try, it's decide what you're going to do to keep momentum going. Because you control you. I control me. And dang it, this year I'm going to grow. And for those of you who are new to the podcast, one of the things that we talked about late in the year last year, and it was because one of our listeners, Jenny, she's a big part of the community too, was sharing her process of choosing a word of focus every year and how she comes to the word. She shared it with us all. Hers is freedom. And then she sparked like a mini LFTN revolution of choosing words. And I was having a really crappy year last year. And so I did a lot of introspection and I thought, that's a great idea. I think I'll choose a word. And she came on the show and talked about how it works for her. In fact, I've put a link to that show in the show notes. If you haven't heard that episode, I recommend you go listen to the interview with Jenny Hill. And so as 2019 wrapped up for me, it was kind of a year of stagnation. Sure, the coffee business grew. Like some of my businesses grew, and that was great because I was replacing income from what used to be a regular, like normal person job. And as I noodled on 2020, I was like, what do I really want? And I realized what I want to do is grow. And I didn't really mean so much in size. Like I'm big enough now this way that I actually want to shrink. But I meant I wanted to grow as a person. I wanted to grow spiritually. I do wanna grow my businesses to a more affluent level to keep things, so that when situations like our current one with the economy being a little iffy right now, I have a good nest egg. I wanted to grow my independence. Yeah. I'm pretty independent, but I still wanna grow my independence, and I really, really, really wanted to grow more of my own food. When I first moved out here, we were eating about 80% of our food off of here, minus meat that I was getting from farms within a couple of miles. So we were doing pretty good, and I loved it, and I was never so healthy as when we were doing that, right? And then as things started coming up, I needed to earn money, you gotta pay bills, all those things. I realized I had less time to grow food. And I thought, "Darn it, 2020 is the year I grow, and I'm gonna grow food as part of this." And so I started the year in a really fragile place emotionally, and I'm not sure I'm out of that yet, but I feel better. Um, and I knew if I focused on growing, the answers to many of the questions I was going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on would come clear. So here's how we're doing. Let's start with the food. Originally, my plan was to expand the aquaponics system and add an indoor lettuce growing operation. And somehow, like magic, Jack Spirko knew I wanted to grow stuff inside, and he mentioned this method called cracky hydroponics. And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool. You don't need any pumps or anything complicated or plumbing. You just kind of put the plant in the fluid and leave a little gap of air between its roots, and it grows and it gets the oxygen it needs, and that's kind of neat. Wonder if I can do that in mason jars." So I did. And what I discovered is that within 4 weeks, I had reasonable lettuce production off of 10 mason jars. I wished I'd had 20 because I eat that. I just eat, guys, I eat a lot of vegetables. So I, thought about it and thought about it. And then I transitioned to these dishwashing tubs that somebody left here at a former event, put a cap on it, and tripled the number of plants in that. And holy cow, am I glad I did that right now, because we're getting about 50% of our lettuce off my indoor grow operation. Outdoor, I put about 26 different Swiss chard slash lettuce things out there. That's where the other half of our lettuce is coming from. And then Mother Nature loves me, and we have this giant watercress patch in the area, and my neighbors apparently like me too, and they cut a path to that so I don't have to keep like crawling through the underbrush to get to it. And so watercress is also a large amount of what's coming off of the land, and I basically haven't been hurting at all about not being able to go to the store. It's kind of nice, you know? So here's where we're going next. As I got into this whole crack key thing, I was like, maybe I can grow tomatoes without the blight if I don't put them in my aquaponics system or in the dirt, because the blight they think comes from the dirt. So I have designed I and all of my friends have together designed, after much discussion, I will say, we've designed an outdoor system that's a closed system for tomatoes, and we're going to put some strawberries in it too, along the south part of my house. And we weren't sure if we should grow the tomatoes in buckets or in pipes where we cycle the water through, because I do have an extra pump sitting around. And so we're going to do both. And we're going to see which one grows better tomatoes. And then by next year, we'll know what to do with the south side of my house. And I've also gotten seeds that are blight resistant varieties for the tomatoes just to help. But I'm hoping with this closed system and high enough off the ground that I don't get bounce back, that I get some pretty good tomato production through. Because what happens right now is it grows, and then like sometime late July, early August, the late blight comes, and we're done. We're done. If I manage to eke one through into the fall, I'll get like 2 more tomatoes off the plant. No good at all. So we are expanding the hydro. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to do some peppers and some other stuff on the front of the house. Because what my front of my house right now is an oasis where I can hang out and sip my iced tea. And I want it to be that. And I think by adding plants and shading it a little bit, because it's south facing, and getting rid of some of the clutter, it's going to be a great place to hang out. Well, so as we've gotten into this year and things have happened, we also decided it's time to re-up my old garden plot. I have right out this window behind me is a wonderful garden plot. It's just below the goat pen. All that nutrient just kind of, seeps into the ground. And I worked that dirt for 10 years before I stopped working on it because I just ran out of time to be tending it all the time. We're going to plant a bunch of stuff up there. So, looking to have all of my own squash production from here, my cucumbers, my tomatoes, my peppers, and lots and lots and lots of greens. And of course, we'll do sweet potatoes, which last year I just like planted them somewhere and it happened to be on a hillside and they went nuts and they kept all the other weeds down. So I'm just sort of planting sweet potatoes around the property to help me with weed control to see if they work not only on that hillside out my window, but also other places. And then we've got lots of duck egg production. I'm going to be offering duck egg shares to 2 people so that, 2 dozen eggs leave the property every week. But we've got more eggs than we need because the ducks that I started last summer are just now laying. And then finally, to grow more food on my property, I'm looking at maybe, haven't committed to this yet, adding a pig. So all of this, guys, is easy to keep going despite everything that's going on. When I have to make a decision about what to do with my time, because it's crazy, like if the governor issues a press release, I read it because that takes 30 seconds. If there's like live coverage of chaos on the TV, I do not watch that. Instead, I make the choice to grow. And sometimes that choice means I'm going to grow my food in trays, right? Or I'm going to start working on that aquaponics system or start more seedlings. In fact, decided today that we're going to do some tomato seedlings and other seedlings for sale. So we're starting those today and in 6 to 8 weeks we'll have smaller plants that people who are just starting gardens, that'll be a nice solid plant that they can transplant into their gardens because why not? I've got the seed, I've got the capacity. I've always been really good at like the seedling to about this tall phase. It's like when I get it out in the garden and the weeds have to be battled that I sometimes just say, screw it, I'm not growing that anymore. There are too many weeds or, the pest pressure comes. I don't have that issue with my seedlings. So going to get some of those out. And this goes from the philosophy of help other people grow their food too. So what are you doing to grow your food? Are you doing anything different since all of the chaos has started? Okay, the next area was personal growth. This was hard to talk about on a podcast, by the way, because then you guys know what I'm going through, and that's kind of embarrassing. But this one's going to sound really weird. So I haven't had fun by myself in a very, very long time. I don't know how. And that's not good. And so one of the things I started doing in January was finding ways to be by myself and, in air quotes, have fun. And it wasn't very fun. I'd feel lonely. And then about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was out on a walk with my dog and looking around and just enjoying where I live. And I felt fun. I felt like I was having fun. And so by developing the habit of doing things I think I like to do by myself, I discovered I can have fun by myself. And that may not seem like a very big deal, and that may seem like a really weird thing. But, like, think about that. I did not know how to have fun by myself, and, now I do. And it's helping me understand, like, the things I quote unquote like to do that I like to do with other people because I like spending time with other people. I do like spending time with other people versus the things I truly like to do that I have fun doing by myself. And for me, that was a huge breakthrough in quarter 1 that it only took me a few months. And I did it by trying. I just kept trying. And it wasn't that I was like super sad when I was doing other things necessarily. Sometimes I was, but it was that some of those things I don't really like doing. I just do them because I'm with somebody who's fun to be with, right? And that's been a really eye-opening thing for me. And it's also why I've been prioritizing walking in the woods with my dogs a lot more because I think it's fun. I also have made a marked effort with some limited success to put the phone down. This has led to chagrin when people can't reach me who are texting me because I usually answer text messages right away, except for when my phone's like, I'll go off for a walk for 3, 4 hours and the phone's at home. And that has been so good for me from a personal growth standpoint and having sort of those lines of I'm actually not working on the weekend every weekend. I don't work on the weekends, guys. I occasionally do something for a client on the weekend if it's easy or if I've scheduled it in advance, but I basically don't work on the weekends because I need that regroup time. And it gives me time to go have fun by myself. I've been working really, this is something I'm terrible at. Working on one thing at a time. Sugar Creek says, I enjoy walking in the woods with my goat. I actually enjoy walking with my goat because she's hilarious. And she tries to pull me off my feet. So we have this little playful thing going. Anyway, staying focused on one thing at a time. I have a lot going on. And if I do a little bit of everything, nothing ever gets done. And so I've been a little bit more stubborn and sometimes probably grumpy sounding to those around me about doing one thing at a time till it's done. That's part of why this podcast is being recorded after 4. I don't usually record it this late, but I thought, I'm going to get the coffee done because people are really into their mail order coffee right now. And if I get that out today, then whatever comes in overnight, I can get out tomorrow. And I don't end up on this like rolling delay thing that keeps happening. And so I just pushed it through and I worked on a bunch of other stuff in between roasting coffee and all the orders are out. And that's great. So getting one thing done at a time has been really helpful to me to also practice staying focused because I had been in roles in my last couple jobs where the quote unquote multitasking, which I think is a fiction, was needed. And I always felt like I was spinning in circles, and I didn't like that feeling. And, I'm pretty good at getting a lot of little things done on a lot of different, like I can navigate that really well. But yeah, it's, staying focused on one thing at a time. I'm getting better at that. Learning to recognize and reframe bad interactions. This is something many of us need to work on. I think if you've been with the podcast long, you've heard about my theory that you are the sum of your 5 or 10 closest contacts, friends, family, whoever that is. And what you do is you list the 20 people who you interact with the most. It's going to include your family, probably some people you work with, some friends you have, just in your whole thing, who are the 20th closest. And then you go through and you mark off, if you feel good, you put a plus after you interact with them every time. If you feel bad, you put a minus. And if it's just neutral, you put a slash. And then you look at that list and you look at the minuses. And you ask yourself, how much time do I spend with the people who suck my energy dry? Right? And then you figure out, can I change how the interaction is and keep that person in my life, or does that person need to go? I mean, it's that brutal. And how can I spend more time with the pluses? When I did that, I had to cut some people out that were really hard to cut out. But I mostly spend time with the pluses now. And that has been a huge difference. No more energy vampires. Well, now I'm looking at, okay, sometimes they're a minus and it's my fault because of how I react to how they interact with me. And I need to learn to recognize when that thing is starting to happen and learn how to reframe it to something else. It either needs to be something that's cut off from impacting me, or we need to stop that being a bad interaction. This is a skill that we all need to work on. This is why we should not get online and start typing madly at people about their differing opinion, right? I mean, it can be really, invigorating and let off some steam to do that. But you don't want to do that really because you're just living in the negative at that point. But if you can change those interactions, it's kind of interesting how people go along with it. I know there are a couple people in my life that I used to have negative interactions with that I did that with, and it stopped. And we're good friends now. And there was no like serious conversation about we got to change this. I just changed me. So that's the other thing is this year, as part of the spiritual journey, learning that I can only control one person, and that person is me. So, and I guess lastly, I decided that I needed to not weigh as much as I do. And so I've been on a keto journey. I have a video series called My Keto Journey that I do a weekly update having finally decided, and it took me months to decide if I was going to do this. I tried more exercise, limiting calories, and a whole bunch of other things, and I kind of lost some weight and kind of got stuck. So after talking with a good friend, I was like, fine, I'll do keto from now until the workshop, which is the end of April, 4 more weeks, and see how I go. Well, I'm down like 12 pounds now. It's not bad. And I'm never hungry or rarely hungry. There are cravings. You can watch those YouTube videos for that. But all of that's making me a better me and it's helping me tap spiritually. I know it's kind of weird. Like, what does weight loss have to do with spiritual well being? Well, when your body's healthy, it's easier for your spirit to be healthy. And I was going down a road where I was going to be one of the people in my family who gets diabetes later in life because we're overweight. And I don't want to go down that road. And so now I can still change that. 10 years from now, it's harder. 20 years from now, it's even harder. 30 years from now, I might as well give up. Right now, I can change it. So now I will change it. Okay. So that's all of the personal growth stuff. Business growth. This one's fun. Hollow roast coffee. Ooh, Hollow Roast Coffee was on probation. Some people thought I was going to close it down when I talked about big decisions coming for Hollow Roast. No, that was not it. So Hollow Roast Coffee has doubled every year since I started it. And I love roasting coffee for people. I love shipping the coffee I roast for people. Couple of friends a couple of times have tried to talk me into doing a cheaper one that I pay another roaster to roast, like $12 a pound instead, that ships straight from a roaster in, Georgia or wherever. Same beans, but it's not really me, and then it's a premium cost for the stuff I actually roast. And I was like, yeah, I just don't that's not really what the brand is, and I've really struggled with that concept, and I decided, this is the year I have to look more critically at the business, because if I double it again, the business becomes unmanageable for me unless I make changes. Changes might include adding an employee. It might include some automation. There's lots of different ways I can go with it. And as I sat there thinking about it, I realized if instead of doubling it, I make it 10 times as big, I can just launch a big old coffee factory and have a production line and it'll be big. And then my biggest thing I need to do is ensure quality of the roast and market the crap out of it so it will sell. And that was the decision I was sitting in January deciding. I was just like, do I do it? Do I not? I talked to some friends in commercial food and production lines about automation. I did a whole bunch of research. And finally, one day, Mama Sauce is here. We went out to Black Rifle Coffee. They have a plant in Tennessee. And they will give you a tour of their plant. They said they don't get very many tours, but it's kind of, you can go see how coffee's made in a plant by Black Rifle Coffee in Tennessee. It's in Tullahoma. And they're super nice. They're like very open with what they do and how they do it. I really appreciated. They had their head roaster come out and talk to me because they knew I was a roaster. So I'd probably have like weird questions that other people don't usually ask. And I went through this plant and I looked around at the shelves of pallets of coffee. And for context, a pallet of coffee has like 1,500 or more pounds of coffee on it. It's a lot of coffee, very heavy. And they have shelves of these things stacked up to the ceiling. And they have these giant roasters and they have a bagging machine and they have these really big grinders and they're still hand bagging some of it. Yeah, it's really interesting. And lots of open space and, hair nets and notices in the bathroom about hand washing. Hand washing is important. And as I'm on this tour, I was like, I kind of want to see if they'll let me intern here because of some of the roasting and science and quality control. Like I was really interested in the quality control lab. But I don't want one of these. In no reality of the life I'm building for myself do I want one of these. And so I left Black Rifle Coffee thinking hopefully I'll decide that I want to put time into an internship and maybe I'll get to do an internship there in the summer or something if they do that. And Holler roast is not that. It's never gonna be that. I don't want it to be that. I don't wanna own that. I don't wanna manage that. Instead, what we'll do is continue to focus on the premium custom roasted mail order business core that we are. And and that means I'm not trying to grow 10 or 20 times this year. That means I'm not trying to get investment to build a factory. Instead, what we're gonna do is what we've done best for a long time and build our core. And that means that I can produce something that a lot of larger coffee people can't, and that is I have a very wide variety of beans throughout the year that I get my hands on and I roast because I buy them in small amounts. And like for example, we're about to have a honey processed coffee, and so honey processing is a way of processing the bean that leaves a very unique flavor. And the reason it does is the way that coffee beans are processed is they harvest them, they take the outer cherry off, the coffee cherry, like the fruit part, and then they wash them with water. And then there's a fermentation process that happens, and then they package the beans after they're dried, and those are the beans you get. That's not the only way it happens, it's one of the ways. Honey process, they don't wash, so when you take the berry off, a little bit of the juice is still on there. That's still left on the bean, and it adds a sweeter flavor. So without adding sugar, you're getting a sweeter flavor. And I've been looking for honey roasted beans to roast for a long time. And that's right. I'm just gonna spoiler alert here. I won't tell you where it's from, but the coffee of the month in April is a honey roasted one. And I ordered extra because I think people are gonna love it so much that I'll have some available for sale in May. It's hard to do that when you're a large factory. It's hard to do that. And so I don't have to be a large factory, right? And I don't want to be a large factory. So we're going to, focus on that premium custard roasted thing. And I'm seeing a comment over on YouTube, M saying, "Good plan, don't outgrow us." That's one of my customers who has been there almost from day one. Thanks, M. That we worked with on a custom bean we do with them. So there's going to be a big transformation this week, though. And this is one I've been working on for 6 months that I also had to decide about. And if you are a customer of Hollow Roast, you're going to see this change. It's kind of a big deal. I'm going to do free shipping. And what that really means if you're a customer is absolutely nothing. So the price of coffee is going up and shipping is going to be free. So I polled my existing customers and said, would you rather have free shipping but higher per pound price, or lower per pound price but shipping? And all of them said, I don't care. I don't care. A couple of them said, what do new people want? And the answer is new people want free shipping. So it'll be free shipping over a certain minimum amount. And the reason I was going to launch it like later in the summer, but now with the whole environment of people needing to mail order stuff, I am losing new customers to the fact that I have shipping on my website. So right after this website, after I go down to the stinging nettle patch and get my stinging nettles and take my dogs on one last walk today, I'm going to be transforming all of the products over, and I'll be sending an email to all the customers I've ever had in my life about that, so they're not surprised. And if for some reason somebody's order ends up, 50 cents higher than it should have been with the current situation, I will fix it. I have a special way to refund 50 cents on the back end. But I think I've figured it took me like I've been thinking about this, like, how do I do this mathematically? I've been thinking about it for 3 weeks. It took forever. I got it. I know what I need to do. And we're going to launch that. And then I'm hitting an advertising campaign right now for mail order coffee, because right now people want mail order coffee from a lady in a holler who isn't talking to anybody. And so why not add new customers, right? So that's my big holler roast announcement. That's how Grow is going for 2020. And the thing is, like, from a finance standpoint, we are up a bit. And a lot of that is people putting in big orders, like 5-10 pounds, because they're going to be home for a while. So what I thought was going to be a huge negative impact on the company right now has been a net gain. I expect it, as we get through April, to kind of crash again when people are, because right now people still have money. That could all change depending on how long this goes. So we're laying plans to do the best we can with what we have. And that brings up coaching. So I used to do corporate coaching. I still do. I'll travel and do coaching. This year I've had an increased demand on digital coaching. And so I've started doing, coaching people through the development of their marketing position, coaching people through the development of their website, coaching people through the development of a new business. Like setting up these coaching programs has suddenly become really popular. And it's kind of like when one door starts closing somewhere, if you pay attention, another opportunity comes up. And so I love coaching. It's what I love to do. I probably do it on this podcast and don't even know, right? So the coaching is something that's going to become a lot easier to find. I've always waited for people to just ask me via email rather than offer it as a product online. And that's going to change. So Spark Communications Group will have that. I'll make it really obvious on Living Free in Tennessee that there are coaching programs available. And that brings me to the last thing I wanted to grow in 2020. And I'm not growing it at all. You are. And that's the Living Free in Tennessee network. I have seen so many good things come out of the network that I wanted to see it grow. And I talked about it a bit in December. And then I didn't really do anything. But then you guys started doing something. And this is what's been really cool to watch. You've always been a tight network, but I see you reaching out and bringing more people in and showing them how to get started in the Living Free in Tennessee network and how to be empowering rather than like screaming about the world is ending. And I think that's why nobody wanted to hear a thing about COVID. When I said, what do you want to hear about? You're like, not that again, please, Nicole. And I'm like, yeah, we're not going to go there this week. And so I just want to thank you all for continuing to grow the network and empowering other people to take control of their lives, because while the mess is going outside right now, there are so many opportunities to grow yourself, to grow your financial position, no matter what the obstacle. Right now, it's a thing. It's a virus thing. Next week, it'll be a stock market thing. After that, the healthcare system isn't going to be working. And then after that, the banks are going to be in crisis. Like that's life. Things keep coming. A real estate crash, I hope I'm making some of you have anxiety attacks. Anyway, there are so many opportunities to grow if you're able to be around people who understand how to navigate some of those things, who can give you trusted advice instead of panic advice. And I think all those obstacles just make your journey more interesting. And for those of you who are scared and wondering what to do next, think about what you can control. Stocks are about to be on sale. If you have cash right now, stocks are about to be on sale. I don't know when they're going to be on sale, but they're going to be on sale. Have I looked at them today? No. I'm not paying attention to that, but I do know they're going to be on sale. I know Bitcoin was on sale last week. So there are things you can control. And the things you can't, like this situation, none of us can control this situation, nor can we control how others react to it, but we can control ourselves, because the one person you can control is yourself, and you can look for that opportunity and move forward. It's really interesting. Somebody in our network, Stephanie, went on the network and was like, well, my pet grooming business just basically ended. All of her customers canceled because nobody wants to see anybody, right? So I don't know what I'm going to do for income, but I'm going to do the best I can. And, she talked about some things. And what she's been doing on the side, in addition to her pet grooming business, or pet sitting, sorry, not grooming, she's been announcing every so often that she's making salsa in the kitchen. And if you want her to can you up some salsa, you can. You just have to let her know, and then she delivers it. I saw Stephanie, so she posted that and was just thankful that, she's in a position where basic expenses are covered, but it wasn't a lot to move her forward, and she was kind of bummed out about it. The very next day, this is so Stephanie, I see this big old post about all this stuff that she's going to be available for pickup or for delivery. And I was like, you go, Stephanie. 2 days later, she's like, I haven't done baked goods before. Now I'm doing baked goods. She's going to come out of this with more money from selling food to people who can't leave their houses or won't leave their houses than before she came in, because she looked for the opportunity. She loves doing that, and she's killing it. I think that's awesome, Stephanie. So I don't know. You guys tell me, what's your word? Back to the word of the year. What's your word? And how are you doing with your word at this point? I'd like to hear. If you like the show and want to support the work I do, you can do that by buying your coffee from Hollow Roast Coffee or become a member. Membership is over at livingfreeintennessee.com, and it gives you access to extra content, webinars, shared discounts on things, and priority registration at events. That's all over at livingfreeintennessee.com. Also, tomorrow at 7:30, we'll be doing the chat over on mewe. That's Living Free in Tennessee on mewe. We chat from 7:30 to 8. Jump in. There's been a lot of fun talks going on, including the idea for today's show. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. Do you know what happened last week when I recorded this thing? And I went over and looked. Stupid thing had stopped recording. It stopped recording. I was really upset. I had to go re-record the end, and all of you who were there listening saw me re-record the end because it was like, well, we didn't get the end of that one. But today, I just hit save, and it recorded. Woo! Okay, well, thanks guys for joining in. It was fun to see your comments as things went on, and this will be up as a regular video on YouTube. I'll have the podcast out in about 45 minutes. Talk to you next time.